Hello, I'm TheaTouchton. Welcome to my channel. I'm doing another Q&A for y'all today, and this one's just a bunch of kind of deep questions, and I'll just go until I feel like it's getting too long, that a reasonable person should be able to get off of the computer if they must and not have to pause the video. That's how long I'm going. Probably like 20 minutes, ideally. That's always the goal. And then I talk for an hour, which is so much fun. Anyway, subscribe for me to overtalk. So the first question is, how can I cope with sadness in a healthy way? I feel like the best way to cope with sadness is to acknowledge that you're feeling it. I think when you pretend you don't have a feeling, that doesn't help. And then I would just try to do something that makes me happy and remember that there's joy and hope in the world. Even if it's just something small, that's where I would start to cope with sadness. Other tips I have is like, it really does matter, I think, that you're like enjoying your food and getting enough nourishment, as well as social activity. Those are other great ways to cope with sadness. The next question is, which behavior that I know is wrong and has negative effects do I repeat over and over again? I have to think about this one a little bit because I try to eradicate those behaviors. I think sometimes when someone disagrees with me, I can definitely come off more loving than I tend to do. I think sometimes when someone disagrees with me, I don't understand their thought process, and I don't want people to feel shamed by that, so I'm definitely trying to work on being gentler when someone has like an opinion that I disagree with, like learning to listen more intently to what they're trying to express rather than just like jumping down the throat because it's different than my opinion. So that's something I'm doing because I think it's important to at least listen to people. I can definitely be better at listening. The next question is, how long do I reflect on my failures or mistakes? Oh man, probably too long. I can think about a mistake for years. It definitely affects me less as time goes on, but that doesn't mean I still don't think about it. The next question is, do I have difficulties in coming to terms with my mistakes or vice versa? Do I suppress such an experience? I do think I have difficulty sometimes coming to mistakes. Not like the worst difficulty ever, but I definitely am a perfectionist and feel haunted by like failures that happen, you know, even though they're a part of life, and it's honestly not that big of a deal. Sorry, I just bumped the microphone. Very professional. Oh no, now I'm gonna ruminate on this failure. I think I'll be okay. But that's the thing, is like sometimes it's like I might think about that for a couple minutes, but I won't necessarily think about how I bumped the microphone forever. Like sometimes I will be down on myself and like, oh, I wish I recorded certain things better. And then other times I'm like, you know what, I enjoyed making the thing and I think that's more important. So I move on from my mistakes. I think I come to terms with them, but it still is a process for me. And I think it's okay that I take a little time processing my mistakes. That says a lot about me as a person, I believe. The next question is, do I find it hard to forgive? I think it really depends on what happens, but even then I want to say forgiving is not necessarily the hard part for me. It is like, I'm not a forgetter. I'm not a forgiven forgetter. I do remember, and relationships change, and I do feel bad because I think my perfectionist standard for myself, I realized, has gotten out onto other people, and that's not very fair. But I do think that there are some things where it's like, you know, once my trust is broken in certain ways, I personally just can't open up that trust again, especially when it comes into terms of like my boundaries and mental health and my own stability. There are just unfortunately a lot of people who will try to drag you down, and I wish that wasn't so, but there are a lot of negative people out there, and obviously all I do is wish them healing because that's all I can do. But I'm definitely not giving people who disrespect me keys to my own temple, you know. I definitely have higher standards for people in my life. The next question is, how long do I need to forgive? Again, it really depends on the situation. I usually forgive once I know somebody is truly sorry. That's the other part. I can't really do forgiveness if no one ever admits that they're wrong or that there was something to even be sorry about, or even like that they wish things could have gone differently, or just like a simple understanding of the pain that they caused me, you know. So it's definitely taken me years to forgive some things, and sometimes I've forgiven things in an instant, so it really depends. The next question is, am I honest with myself about my feelings? I like to say that I am. I don't go as much as I used to before I got my PCOS diagnosis, which just tells you how much like hormones really impacted at least me personally. But I like to be like, I like to notice my feelings, but not like dwell in them. Like I used to just like be consumed by them, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And that they kind of drive my next action behavior. And now I can kind of sit with my feelings and perch over them and kind of decide, like, where is this feeling coming from? Can it chill out? You know what I mean? Can it be expressed in a more loving way? So I have a little bit more control. There are definitely times where my passion overtakes me. Like when I mentioned, like, the behavior that I know is wrong. So, yeah, I like to believe that I am honest with myself about my feelings. Am I honest? The next question is, a lot of honesty questions, is, am I honest with other people about my feelings? And this I think I could be more honest with. I think sometimes I've just, like, being the daughter of an alcoholic, you know, you start to realize that, like, you can't change people, only people can change themselves. So sometimes the way that I'm feeling, I don't necessarily share with others because I'm like, oh, this is just, like, me personally, and I want to process it more before I risk sharing it with you, because I feel now in a world of so many people and in a city of so many people, relationships are very fragile. So I don't feel the need to share every ounce of my feelings with somebody that I'm close with in my life if I think that my feelings might upset them, because when I hang out with a person, I want my experiences with them to be profoundly positive. And that's why I think if anybody was saying they had a negative experience with me, usually I get very upset if I'm even like a little sad and that experience dampened that, because that's how much I value having like a positive experience with people. So I could be probably more honest and trust that that's like the true meaning of human connection. But sometimes too, it's like I'm so used to just working out on my feelings on my own. If it really bothers me and I think it's going to be a problem in the friendship and I feel like I've invested a bunch in the friendship, of course I will speak on my feelings. But I'm more about cheering people up. And I think sometimes like what a friend needs is more confidence than honesty. Like some things are just like good enough too. Like I don't need to be the worst critic ever. Like I can always tell you what devil's advocate is going to say, but I'd rather be the cheerleader, you know? Next question. Do I completely accept and love myself the way I am? I think there's definitely things that I'm still working on loving about myself, but it's not necessarily that I don't love myself. There's just some parts that I am getting used to, which is I think just like having chronic pain and a disability. And in artist life, right, you just kind of and unlearning trauma on top of that with me. There's just some stuff that I am still working on and that I don't know is necessarily myself. Like I'm definitely always interested in unlearning things that no longer work, but I still accept and love myself underneath that like quest for knowledge. Next question. Do I reward myself when I accomplish something productive? Yeah, I've been better at doing this. I want to make more shindigs and like events of when things are going well for me, to like invite somebody out in dinner in a celebration or throw a party in a celebration instead of just like waiting for the traditional like birthday party or like holiday party. Like just throwing a, hey, this is a like creative accomplishments party, you know, and just celebrating that stuff, because being productive in an artistic career and in a pandemic, and when you're your own boss and when you're developing a new idea, it's not necessarily easy. So I think the rewards are definitely worth it, and I need to indulge in them more. Next question. How do I deal with my failures? Well, usually I beat myself up for a little bit, and then I work on having thoughts that don't beat themselves up, and I try to spin it positively. I'm definitely not naturally an optimist at all. I have to work at all of the optimism I have. So when I do have a failure, I get upset about it because obviously I wanted to succeed. Who doesn't? And then I see what I learned from that failure, and then I probably try again, or I decide, hey, I don't really need to be successful at this. Not everybody's successful at everything, and I move on to something that I am successful at and do better. Next question. What is it that I would like to heal from? I would definitely like to heal from all of my family drama and my rape trauma. Those would be my goal things to heal from. And being bullied. Trifecta, let's say. And I think I have healed a lot. Like, I think there's always gonna be scars there, and it might always be tender, but it'll get less tender as I get farther and further away from it, and I'm not going to feel any shame for my tenderness anymore, because I think that's a lovable quality about me and makes me care about people. So I'm gonna keep my tenderness, but I would like to just not have people who were wrong or mentally disabled, not in the right mind. I don't want their thoughts clouding up my thoughts. The next question is, what are my negative personality traits and when do they emerge? Definitely when I feel like I'm being challenged or like gaslit, and it's not necessarily challenged as in like competition wise, but more so of like I feel like my mind is being messed with, or like it's a hard kind of thing to talk about. Sorry, I'm trying to find like the right words, but essentially I don't like to feel like I'm an idiot or to like have my confidence questioned. That's always a weird thing, especially when it comes right away. It's like, oh, are you sure you're confident? And I wonder if this only happens when you are a woman sometimes. I don't know the experience of being a man and how it is. I'm sure it just happens probably to both genders and things aren't really a gender thing. But I don't know why I feel like I deal with that a lot, which is why I think I get very frustrated easily, and that will come out. I can be easily overwhelmed by tasks that seem very simple to others just due to like my disability and trauma, you know, and trauma is a disability, but just getting more specific too, because I feel like they're not always thought of as the same thing, even though they are. But yeah, so I can get I'm not always nice when I'm angry, and I should learn to express myself through my anger in a better way. That's something I've just been really working on my whole life. I'm such a Joe March of just not, and it's definitely like a learned family trait. Like that's definitely the family members that I'm closest to. And it's that hard balance, because it's like, so you could speak to in the moment when you're angry, and I feel like I definitely have to calm to a certain center to talk very rationally when I'm angry. And I'm also very stubborn and can hold on to things like that, and it can kind of get like trapped in my body. So it's kind of like a negative concentrate, is that I have a hard time like letting things go super quickly or easily, especially if I get to that state of anger, because it's usually I've like bottled stuff up and I was hoping that it was a mistake, and then it's like the time that it's like, oh no, I realize that this person is either doing it on purpose, or now I'm like really gonna have to bring up the issue because it's something that keeps happening that I don't feel like is healthy, you know, and so then I have to speak on it, and I probably should speak a hair more than I do. I just have a lot of a hard time kind of making sure that that I'm sticking up for myself, or that like I voice something that isn't okay. I hope that made sense. I feel like a lot of like rambling, but yeah. It's hard to talk about my negative personality traits because I feel like I worked so hard to not become a negative person, and then recently I learned that like people are both negative and positive, and that's kind of something I was also thinking about is like, you know, everybody is good and bad, and like you can't really hold a person to like this standard of all good. Like we've all made good and bad choices, and you know, it's not to say like, oh, go make bad choices. You know, that's definitely not what I'm saying. I think we should strive to always make good choices, which is why this matters to me. But it also is to just know that like, you know, like people make mistakes and you're humans and you learn, and sometimes what you think is the right choice isn't, or backfires, and you know, life is a beautifully complicated thing, and that it's okay to like not be perfect. Next question. What is a pattern in my life that keeps showing up? I definitely think that I don't chase men who are super interested in me, and that sometimes that scares me, even though that's what I want. But I feel like I get to that place pretty normally, and there's definitely been times when I've had that person like be that into me, and it like scares me right away when I don't think it should have. I should have, I think, felt more flattered, but at the same time I think I'm like where I need to be in that. But I definitely see my patterns of like it's such a daddy issue thing, and I hate to do that because it's not to trivialize it. It's just like how important the relationship of like having a good father really is that I just feel like I keep picking men that like grow to love me, or like I have to like prove myself to them, and that's just really like a pattern I want to get rid of, because you know, like why can't we just be people hanging out, you know? Question, the next one. What am I struggling, or where am I struggling the most? I definitely could say I can make more money. That's, I think, the biggest thing in my life that's unbalanced is I want to be debt-free, and I want to be making more than my cost of living, especially so I can help other people be in the same position. I don't like the disparity of wealth, and I want to help fix it. Next question, and probably last question, at least for this section. How does the feeling of envy show up in my life? Where does it stem from? Good one. It's hard because I try not to be a jealous person. Oh, sorry, just, there's actually more to the question too, so I knew there's a different page. So it goes, how does the feeling of envy show up in my life? Where does it stem from? And how would I feel if I obtained the things I'm envious of? So I'll take it by the first one. I think the feeling of envy shows up in my life in the fact of like other people having easier childhoods and like being taught more sensible things younger, and like actually having a support system and being able to grow. And it's not necessarily that I wish that they didn't have it. That's not how my envy is. It's just like, oh, I want that too, you know, and I can never have it because I have this life. So obviously it stems from just like, it's just hard, you know, it's just a hard world when you get mistreated like that. I mean, but the brutal nature of it is that no matter what, I have to keep moving forward anyway. I can't stop just because I didn't get something in my past. Like, it's like, clearly I'm still alive, so I was able to survive without it. It was definitely harder. It definitely came with cost, but I can still do it. But I do feel like, I would be so much further ahead in life had I had that thing, you know? And maybe that's not necessarily always true, but I definitely feel like it is, you know? And maybe that's also a negative trait, but I feel like I mean, in this life, things have to happen for a reason. So even though this is shitty and it's been very hard to think of why anything would happen, at least I'm talking about it. At least I'm giving it a floor. At least I'm feeling like comfortable to share my journey and figure out how to prevent it in other people and have these sorts of discussions and lead a life as a person who like doesn't do that to a child, you know? But I would feel so good if I had the amazing childhood, and I would love to see what my life would have looked like with that. But it's never to be, and I don't think I have a pretty bad life now, so it does get better, but fuck, it's hard, and people should just take care of their kids. Like, why? Why did you have one then if you don't want to take care of it? Anyway, whole other rant. Next question. In what ways do I consciously or unconsciously punish myself? How can I be kinder to myself? I definitely cannot beat myself up when I rest, so that's definitely a way of being kinder to myself. I definitely like punish myself for resting, and I talk myself out of opportunities a lot that I should just go with. I talk myself out of introducing myself to people and meeting new people and keep saying like, oh, I have to go through this growth that takes time, and then I only have a few friendships when I think I can make a lot more friendships, so that's definitely also something I'm learning. Next question. What should I forgive myself for? Why haven't I yet? How can I now? I think I can definitely forgive myself for rushing into a marriage. I feel like I was reacting pretty smart, and it's not my fault that somebody, lied to me about who they were. And I think I haven't yet is because to this day, he's still gaslighting me through other people, and we never had that conversation of closure that would be very helpful, but I'm also like, I'm not going to get it, and I've had it with imaginary him, and I made a bunch of great art having that conversation with this imaginary person, because, to be honest, my husband presented an imaginary person to me, like he was not who he claimed to be, and so all I really have to do is say goodbye to an imaginary person, right? I don't really have to say goodbye to whoever that was who was pretending, because I never really met them. So I think it gets better year after year. This year I had like an encounter with him again, and I was trying to make it right, and he doesn't want it to, and I think that says a lot about his character. So that's that. Have fun reading my poetry book, ex-husband. There's everything I wanted to say to you if you cared to listen, which you don't, because you could have at any time, and I would have listened to what you had to say. But you didn't have anything to say, because I don't think I was the problem there, huh? Anyway, the next question is, what unhealthy attachments do I hold on to? I'm definitely attached to perfectionism. I'm trying to get rid of it, because I think even my idea of perfect isn't other people's perfect, and I do that really with like these YouTube videos. Like, I don't stress over making them perfect. I just kind of release and keep them for fun. It obviously doesn't pay all the bills yet, which would be nice, but I think the healing aspect it has on me is worthwhile, so I don't mind. Another healthy attachment. I think I could definitely always learn to be attached to less stuff, which I think I'm getting to, and also less attached to like having a specific outcome, and more so just like being present in the moment and enjoying the journey, because that's just better for everybody, and sometimes the best part of life is just all in the unexpected surprises. What do I have to gain from ending these attachments? I think I would gain a lot of peace of mind, a lot of more enjoyment. I also think just because I made mistakes doesn't mean that I'm beyond loving, because everybody makes mistakes, and that's just like a stupid thing I also need to let go of. I think a fear that I always have around the idea of like ending any of these attachments, that's the next question, is that I'm just afraid. I never want to become a sociopath, and obviously having that fear means that I'm not, but I also like, would a sociopath have learned that, right? I get to overthinking about it because clearly I've been mentally messed up by a bunch of like psychopaths, and it was just a very hard mind game melding thing that I did not like. But the damage that it did to me, it's so important that I don't want to do that. So I think I get stuck into these states of like super overanalyzing my reactions to things because I just want to make sure that I'm not hurting anybody. And sometimes like you do hurt people, and it's not ideal and it's not necessary, but it's also like something that you can talk out and you can heal the people you hurt. And the fact that I've always been like sticking around to heal anybody if I've messed up is like, it's proof of my character, and I think that it can be all right to not be attached to like, oh, the fact that I was bad even slightly means that I'm bad forever. Like, I think I can let those go because those are really toxic ideals from people who are clearly unhappy and not living any better of a life than I am. Next question. What negative emotions am I most comfortable feeling? None of them. I think I can handle morality, like death, pretty okay. I just like it comes with the territory of having struggled with being suicidal. So that's it's an easier one for me. I feel like I get into a sort of like numbness about it and almost like a sense of peacefulness. That's probably about it. I don't really like to feel sad or angry, or nostalgic or impatient. So I can just kind of do the numbness of grief pretty well, How often and why do these emotions show up in my day-to-day life? Well, I think I've definitely been mourning the loss of my childhood for a while, and the loss of a little bit of my like young adulthood, especially like coming into 26, and now I am getting into like my early adulthood days that were kind of robbed, and getting into like my later stages until I'm middle-aged, so I'm kind of just mourning the time that it took to get here and the struggle, and when it all could have been easier with a lot of cooperation and just talking about things more. So I definitely feel a sadness and an anger and an impatience with all of that, and that comes up at least daily, and I breathe through it and focus on work and just take it a minute at a time. Next question. In what ways do I hold myself to a higher standard than others? And vice versa. I definitely feel like I want to do both quantity and quality, which is pretty difficult. I feel like I have to be doing all of the things at least semi-well, when others can just do one thing really well and I'm like, wow, that's amazing. I want to be able to do that. But I don't necessarily feel that I might not be like talented enough at just one thing, or the one thing that I am, I think actually really talented enough is like not necessarily based on talent. So that's amazing. So yeah, I hold myself, I don't like to make a lot of mistakes in friendships, and I will let friends make so many mistakes before I even say anything. I do think I hold others to a higher honesty standard than I hold myself. I get really mad if other people lied or were dishonest with me, but if I was dishonest with them, I would like rationalize it, which that's a bit crazy, that's silly. I should not ever do that. It's like rare, and like usually my dishonesty is like I just wasn't super honest about like what I thought about this project or this idea or what they should do with this person they have a crush with, right? Like little white lies, but still, probably should not lie at all. That's probably for the best. Because it's like that thing that's like what my husband will do. Knows that I will, or my ex-husband, to clarify. I'm not married again, though I wish. Because then it would be over in some ways. But, that's the thing, is like I have like little white lies I tell people to protect their feelings, and then people like my ex-husband will then use that like, oh, I'm capable of lying, I am a liar all the time, and I lied about all the abuse, right? And that kind of like gaslights my mind, because I'm like, well, I do feel guilty about not being honest, so I should just be honest. And even if people get mad at it, it is what it is, you know? It's just so hard. It's just like sometimes it's like, I'd rather you just not be upset, you know? Like, it's just, I don't want people to be so upset, because life is just full of feeling other feelings. But next question. What is a grudge/incident that I'm holding on to? Why do I choose to hold on to this weight? How can I let it go? I mean, I definitely have a grudge against my ex-husband using other people to online bully me. It just feels cowardice, and I probably should just let it go, to be like, somebody who does that obviously has more problems, and it's just more proof that I'm right, and that I'm not imagining things, and it's not a gaslight. It's like, it is a gaslight situation, and I'm not the one who's gaslighting, you know? So, you can definitely let that go. In full disclosure, I don't think anybody really listens to these, but somebody I'm working with, I guess we'll say, is in love with me again, and I am definitely very mad, because when I gave them a chance, they blew it, and it just feels like, even though I shouldn't, I feel like, be as mad as I am about it, I can let that go. I think I'm choosing to hold on to it, because it's like, well, if you had stepped up when I gave you the chance, my whole life would be better and different now. So why did you do that? So I need to figure out how to let it go. And I mean, we're still working together, so figuring it out that way, I guess. The next question is, how do I show up for others and fail to show up for myself? I need to be better at cleaning for myself, and honestly for others in my life. I need to be better at buying presents for others, and I need to be able to show more compassion. I just think in general, I'm pretty good at treating myself, I feel like, how I treat others, and I definitely for a while treated others better than I treated myself, and then my health got so bad I had to rearrange, and now I feel so selfish treating myself, even though when other people necessarily pick themselves, I'm not super mad about it. I understand it more, but it does hurt sometimes, because I am I usually don't always put my other needs, but everybody's needs are different, and that's I'm just kind of finding out where my boundaries are with people, and letting people be okay with that, or if they're not, maybe they're not the right people, and that's fine. Next question. How important am I to myself? How highly do I prioritize myself? I think I'm pretty important to me now, and I'm pretty high in the prioritizing now, just because of my health scare and just going through abusive relationships. I definitely healed that part, and now it's the balance of completing the healing and still being there more for others, and getting myself to stability so that I can give. That's kind of my journey now. Next question is, what am I addicted to? Probably sugar. Trying to cut it, but very hard. I like a sweet thing in my mouth, what a sentence. But I just like the pleasant aftertaste and rush of sweets in the way that it makes me feel emotionally. So that's probably what I'm addicted to. I also taking marijuana before any sort of massage, or anytime I'm working with chronic pain. I definitely feel that. Mostly because I'm just less sore the next day and I'm less tired. It still hurts. Honestly, I might even argue that it hurts more in the moment when I'm high, because I'm feeling it, but then I also am able to release it more. Sorry to be pro-drug on here, but I mean, it's a plan, and marijuana should be a prescription drug, at the very least. for people, because it just, I mean, the science is there and the pain we're accepting. I don't know why we want others to suffer and be in pain. It's just mean. Legalize weed. Anyway. Next question is, what are my delusions? Sometimes I'm definitely worried that I am deluding myself, believing that my current boyfriend is going to marry me, and that it's like that same thing of that I want more from men than what they're ever really going to give me, in this weird like daddy issue thing that I'm still dealing with. So I worry about that. I worry sometimes about like me making my living on solely the artistic stuff I do when I don't have an audience, if that's just like a delusion and I need to work on like building a better audience. I think that's just my two that I'm worried about. And then we'll do last question, because I'm sure this is already so long. The last question is, how have I been ignorant? I think there was definitely racism education that I had to do on like all types of races, honestly. Just like, what is the real language? Because my town that I grew up in as a teenager, when we were kind of learning that stuff, did not have a correct education system, it seems like. So in that way I've been ignorant. I think I'm definitely just like, I was ignorant too on like just health stuff and the importance of that, which I think just comes from neglected. So I'm learning more about that, and those are like kind of the other things I've been ignorant to. I wonder, what are your answers to some of these questions? How do you feel? I think these are technically called shadow work questions, so I'm going to rebrand them as that. There's more to come, but we'll keep it simple. We'll keep it simple in this video, because they were deep, and I know I am a rambling gal, non-binary. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. It would mean so much if you subscribe and check out my other videos. I have playlists for almost everything, and I'm working on making the thumbnails and the whole channel prettier. It just takes time, because I am a team of one on my YouTube, unless you see Swanito Media, and then I am a team of more people, which is nice, and I'm just mainly trying to build that one up more, and I'm just getting rid of my old projects that kind of just sat on my phone, and it's time to release them. All right, have a good one. Bye.